He laughed while telling me how he catfished a lonely boy in high school for fun. He thought it was hilarious. So I gave him a taste of what that feels like on his birthday. Have you ever met someone who seemed just right? Not perfect, but close enough to make your heart hope again? That was Thomas. At the time, I was 26, freshly recovered from a long, emotionally dry relationship and just starting to feel like maybe I could open up again. When I met Thomas, he had this calm confidence. The kind that makes you feel safe, but intrigued. His words were thoughtful. His smile? Always 1 second slower than you'd expect, as if he was actually listening before reacting. He was 28, smart, well-read, a little rugged in appearance, but clearly someone who took care of himself. That mix of masculine charm with subtle gentleness? Yeah, I fell fast. We met through mutual friends at a wine bar in Paris. Our first conversation lasted hours, jumping from literature to politics to our worst childhood meals. And when we parted, he touched my wrist ever so lightly and said, "I'd really like to see you again." No games, no pressure, just clarity. That night, I walked home smiling like a teenager. 7 weeks flew by in a blur of late-night strolls by the Seine, quiet dinners, bookstore dates, and stolen kisses under flickering street lamps. It wasn't just chemistry. It was the way he asked questions that made you feel seen. How he remembered the name of my first pet, the one I'd mentioned in passing. How he always made sure I got home safe. By week 5, I started imagining the possibility of us. Not in a fairy tale way, just the kind of grounded hope you feel when someone seems like they genuinely value you. Then came the invite. My dad's letting me use his countryside house for my birthday weekend. Thomas had said, eyes sparkling. It's quiet, beautiful, just a few old friends, some wine, maybe a barbecue. I'd love for you to come. It sounded perfect, idyllic, even. It would be the first time I met his father, and 2 of his childhood best friends would be joining as well, Alex and Bart. He spoke of them with nostalgia. Stories of summer mischief, late-night video games, and biking through sleepy French villages. You know, the kind of innocent, golden-hued memories people treasure. I said yes, of course. I even bought a new sundress for the trip. Something light and simple, but elegant. I genuinely wanted to make a good impression. Friday afternoon, we drove out together. The countryside in late spring was everything I imagined. Rolling hills, blooming wildflowers, and that quiet hum of distant cicadas. The house, straight out of a storybook. Stone walls kissed with ivy, deep wooden beams, and a garden that smelled like rosemary and old earth. His father greeted us with warmth. A tall, silver-haired man with kind eyes and a voice that made you instinctively lower your own, out of respect. I liked him instantly, and the other guests seemed fine. Alex was charming in a loud, animated way. Bart was quieter, a little reserved but pleasant enough. That first evening, we had wine by the fire, talked about silly things, childhood crushes, embarrassing first jobs. The air was filled with laughter, candlelight, and good vibes. At that moment, I remember thinking, this might really be something. Maybe this is what normal, kind love looks like. I had no idea that within 48 hours, I'd be sitting alone at a train station, heartbroken, disillusioned, and ready to enact a cold, calculated revenge. But we'll get there. Saturday started beautifully. We walked through the local town market, bought fresh strawberries and lavender honey, and wandered hand in hand past ancient stone fountains. By midday, Thomas kissed my temple and whispered, "You're really making this birthday perfect." I smiled, kissed him back, and meant it. Later that evening, we gathered in the garden for a small party with neighbors and friends of Thomas's childhood. Wine flowed freely. Someone strummed a guitar. Laughter echoed across the lawn like music notes in the wind. As night deepened, a small group formed around a campfire near the edge of the property. It was cozy, warm, intimate. People started sharing stories from their school days. You know the type: awkward crushes, forgotten pranks, teenage blunders. We all laughed. But then slowly something shifted. Thomas, buzzed and clearly enjoying the spotlight, leaned forward and said, Okay, do you all remember Arthur? Bart immediately choked on his drink, grinning. Alex let out a laugh that sounded like a bark. Someone said, Oh God, not the Arthur story. And I, sitting beside Thomas with my legs curled under me, smiled politely. I expected another harmless anecdote. I was wrong, very wrong. They began to recount how, when they were 14 or 15, they had singled out a boy at school, Arthur.
Quiet. Shy.
No real friends. He practically asked for it, Thomas said, chuckling. The way he walked, always looking at his shoes like the floor was going to open up. They had mocked him relentlessly. Nicknames, public humiliation, anonymous notes. But the worst? They created a fake girl, an entire identity, using Bart's cousin's pictures, and catfished Arthur for months. We had him hooked, Bart said, pride oozing from every syllable. They messaged him on MSN, flirted, asked for cute photos. And poor Arthur responded, sweetly, naively, like a boy clinging to hope. They scheduled a fake date, asked him to travel hours wearing a t-shirt with Elmer the elephant on it. An inside joke. There was nobody there, Thomas laughed. We have no idea how long he waited. But the next day?
Oh, man.
We printed the messages and passed them around school. Brutal. People laughed. But not everyone. My stomach twisted. I couldn't move. My wine felt like acid in my throat. This wasn't a prank. This was emotional torture. Cruel. Calculated. Dehumanizing. And they were proud of it. They didn't flinch. No regret. No shame. In fact, they joked that the only thing they regretted was not being able to convince him to send more interesting pictures. My heart started pounding. My breath caught in my chest. And then I saw it, Thomas's father. He had wandered closer unnoticed and stood silently behind us. His face?
Stone.
His eyes? Devastated. But Thomas, he didn't even notice. The moment I could, I excused myself. I walked fast, eyes burning. I didn't say a word. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just kept hearing Arthur's name, imagining his hopeful messages. That stupid t-shirt, the empty train platform. How small he must have felt. How broken. And Thomas? My sweet, sensitive Thomas had enjoyed it. How could I have been so blind? I heard him stumble into bed around 4 a.m. He reeked of booze, tried to curl around me. I pretended to sleep, my body frozen. And that's when I knew. Something inside me clicked. He had destroyed someone for sport, and he was still proud of it. He didn't deserve kindness. He deserved to feel, just for a moment, what Arthur might have felt that day. Morning light crept in through the old country house windows. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't. I lay still, staring at the wooden beams above our bed. Thomas, beside me, snored softly. His arm rested lazily across my waist like nothing had changed. But everything had. I remembered every word from the night before, every smug laugh, every disturbing detail. And I couldn't stop thinking about Arthur. Somewhere out there, there's a man who probably still carries the wounds of that betrayal. Someone who may never have trusted another person again. All because a group of privileged teenage boys, led by the man lying next to me, decided he was disposable. And they enjoyed it. I had felt such safety in Thomas's arms. But now I felt infected. I wanted to scream.
To cry.
But I didn't. Instead, I got up. Quietly. Calmly. I made coffee for everyone. Smiled when I handed Thomas his mug. Brushed a lock of hair from his face like nothing was wrong. Because this was no longer about me. This was about giving him a taste of what he'd never understand. Humiliation. Isolation. Disbelief.
Loss.
But in a way he would never see coming. I said nothing throughout breakfast. Played the part. Laughed when Alex cracked dumb jokes. Helped Thomas prep for the barbecue he wanted that afternoon. He was excited. It was his day. A small cake had been ordered. More guests were expected later. His dad was helping arrange the wine pairings. And me, I was quiet, but he didn't notice. He thought I was just tired, maybe a little hungover. He kissed my temple again and said, "Can't believe I'm 29. I'm so lucky you're here." The cruelty of that moment still stings. He thought he had everything, and that's when I decided how I would do it. Around noon, I stepped away, pretending I needed a phone signal. I found his father in the garden shed, organizing tools. I approached him slowly. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded. Something in his eyes told me he already knew. I asked him gently, "Did you know about Arthur?" He flinched. "I heard pieces over the years. I didn't know it was that bad." I told him the whole story, what they had said, their laughter, the pride in their voices. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, finally, he said, "Thomas wasn't raised this way. His mother would be ashamed." That's when I asked him if he'd support me, if I made this birthday one he'd never forget. He didn't ask for details. He just said, "Make sure it's public."
Dinner was at 7.
A long wooden table under string lights, beautiful dishes, a few dozen guests, laughter in the air. Thomas wore a crisp white shirt and beamed like a king. I wore the same sundress I'd bought for the trip, the one I chose to impress him. Now it served another purpose, a reminder that this started with love, or what I thought was love. After dinner, people raised their glasses to toast the birthday boy. When it was my turn, I stood, smiled,
And began.
"Thomas," I said, my voice warm but steady, "being with you these past 2 months has been eye-opening." He smiled wide, reached for my hand. I didn't take it. I continued, "You're charming, thoughtful, the kind of man who makes people feel safe, until they realize who you really are." The air shifted, chairs creaked, laughter faded. Thomas froze. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, hit play. I had recorded the entire story around the fire. Every cruel word, every punchline, Arthur's name, the Elmer shirt, the fake account, the printed messages. The audio echoed through the quiet night.
Gasps.
A wine glass shattered. Thomas stood up, eyes wide, shaking his head. "What is this? Why are you?" I cut him off. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's exposure. For every Arthur who was left broken while his bullies thrived." I turned to the guests. This man isn't just a prankster. He's a man who carried no remorse for tormenting someone who trusted him. Alex tried to interrupt. I silenced him with a look. "You're all complicit, and now you're not invisible anymore." Thomas's father stood slowly, his voice steady, controlled. "I'm ashamed," he said. Then he turned and walked inside. The guests followed, one by one, until it was just Thomas, standing alone under the string lights, staring at me. I picked up my bag, walked past him. He reached for me, whispering, "Please,
Don't do this.
I looked at him and said, "Arthur waited for someone who never showed up. Now you'll wait for someone who never comes back." Then I left. The train station was nearly empty. Sunday morning silence wrapped around me like fog. The countryside stretched endlessly beyond the tracks, so peaceful it almost mocked what had happened the night before. I sat on a bench, my bag beside me. The sun had just risen, casting golden light across the platform. And I felt nothing. Not relief, not victory, just stillness. Like my body had run a marathon through fire, and now all that was left was ash. The ride to the station was silent. I took one of the guests' cars, a woman who had quietly handed me her keys and whispered, "Thank you for saying it." I don't even remember driving. I just remember the numbness, like the world had lost color. All night, people had whispered. Some defended him. Most didn't. His father refused to speak to him. Alex left without saying goodbye. Bart cried, which surprised me. But Thomas? He stood alone for hours, eyes hollow, crushed under the weight of exposure. It wasn't about humiliation anymore. It was about consequences. And for the first time in his life, he couldn't charm or lie his way out of it. I don't know where Arthur is today.
I don't even know his last name.
But if he's out there, if somehow he hears this, I want him to know. Someone saw what they did. Someone believed him. Someone didn't laugh. Because what happened to him wasn't just a joke. It was psychological cruelty disguised as teenage mischief. And the man who once laughed at his pain now knows what it feels like to be left, confused and alone, waiting for someone who never shows up. My phone buzzed as I sat on the platform. It was Thomas. I didn't know how bad it was back then. I was a kid. We all were. I stared at the screen. No apology. Just excuses. I deleted the message. Underscore 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 underscore. I boarded the train without looking back. And as the countryside blurred past the window, I made myself a promise. Never again will I ignore a red flag wrapped in charm. Never again will I mistake gentleness for goodness. We live in a world where cruelty often hides behind charisma. But we don't have to be silent witnesses. We can speak up, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it ruins someone's birthday. Because sometimes the truth is the greatest gift you can give.